I did a film with an absolute idiot of a co-star. And this human being was being so insecure and angry because this person couldn't get the scenes out. And I think I was so vulnerable and comfortable that I got screamed at. And I would cry walking off set. This person would literally look at me in front of the whole crew and say, "You call yourself an actor, this is what I have to work with. What is this?" And I stood there just breaking. This happens. But because this person was number one on a call sheet, there was no safety net for me. So no one had my back. And I remember the next day I walked on and I said, "You get off my set." It's the first time I've ever spoken. I remember being so scared. And I looked at this person and I said, "You can F off. I'm going to work towards a tennis ball. I never want to see you again." And then I remember the producers came up and said, "You can't do this to number one. We have to let this person be on set." And I said, "But the person can turn around and I can act it to the back head."
After he got super, super famous from the first Deadpool, then things kind of changed. I think he was like, "See, you guys see." And then I think I don't know. I mean, would I work with him again? No.
No.
I would not work with him
that
again.
much.
Celebs are coming together to spill the truth about Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds, accusing them of running one of Hollywood's biggest scams. And the allegations, they're spiraling out of control. From the Deadpool and Wolverine sets, cast and crew are stepping forward to drag Ryan Reynolds for his iron-fisted control behind the scenes. Insiders claim he bulldozed his way through projects, hijacking creative decisions and shutting down anyone who dared to challenge him. His attitude? My way or the highway. Fans aren't holding back either. Many are calling him out for what they see as a shameless betrayal of Hollywood's trust. But Ryan isn't the only one in the hot seat. Blake Lively's past is catching up with her, and it's not pretty. Screenshots, contracts, and old whispers are surfacing, going as far back as 2018, when she was only supposed to star in The Husband. Yet somehow, she ended up snatching an executive producer credit in secret. And that's just the beginning. Small designers dating back to 2014 are now speaking out, accusing her of stealing their work, taking credit, and ghosting them the second she got what she wanted. Let's be real. Their perfect couple act is officially 6 feet under. If Netflix announced a true crime documentary about their behind-the-scenes drama, no one would be shocked. And if you thought their long-standing beef with Justin Baldoni was messy, that was just the warm-up. While they were out here selling fans the dream of a wholesome power couple, they were allegedly stealing ideas, making empty promises, and playing twisted mind games like a Hollywood Bonnie and Clyde. Now, their carefully crafted image of the funny husband and classy wife is shattered beyond repair. Industry insiders, creative professionals, and even their so-called friends are spilling tea, and the picture they're painting, ugly. The receipts are here and the drama is real. So buckle up, put your phone on Do Not Disturb, and let's dive into Hollywood's pettiest power couple who just might be the biggest scammers in the game. And finally, Blake Lively's shady past is coming back to haunt her. Turns out, her bad decisions didn't just start yesterday. Let's rewind to 2014. While some of you were still watching Paw Patrol, Blake was out here launching one of the most cringeworthy lifestyle brands of all time. Enter Preserve, a painfully out-of-touch website peddling overpriced candles, weirdly rustic home goods, and random handmade trinkets nobody asked for. One article trying to make sense of Preserve straight up said, "If you read the articles, all we can gather is that it was a brand. That's it. No clear purpose, no real direction, just an expensive hipster knick-knack shop designed to squeeze money out of millennials." And guess what? It flopped. By 2015, Preserve was dead in the water. But instead of admitting defeat, Blake claimed it was just ahead of its time. The receipts, though, they told a very different story. Allegations started swirling that she was ordering samples from small artists under fake names, ripping off their designs, and then ghosting them. By October 9th, Preserve was officially buried. Blake had launched the site in July 2014, but when she spoke to Vogue, she made it sound like the shutdown was a choice, saying she and her team weren't proud of it. But let's be real, was it really about pride? Or did the backlash force her to pull the plug before things got uglier? And just when you thought Blake's sticky fingers were only snatching from Etsy shops, plot twist. Turns out she may have been swiping scripts too. Now, this next part is one of those Hollywood whispers that never quite made it to the big gossip pages, so take it with a grain of salt. But the tea, it's steaming hot. Back in 2017, Blake was locked in to star in CBS Films' thriller, The Husband's Secret. And that's when the drama kicked in. An indie screenwriter allegedly came forward, claiming her script had been floating around Hollywood for years before mysteriously getting reworked into the exact same movie Blake was now headlining. But here's where it gets interesting. Mainstream outlets like Deadline, Variety, and The Hollywood Reporter never touched the story. Back then, questioning A-listers was practically forbidden, which is probably why this scandal never made it past the whispers. Now here's the real gag. This isn't some wild conspiracy, especially after an old interview recently resurfaced where Blake literally brags about snatching projects from directors and producers like it's a flex. And just to make things even messier, I double-checked. Not only was Blake the lead in The Husband's Secret, she somehow ended up as the executive producer too. Now, if you know Hollywood, you know how this game works. Half these celebs slap executive producer on their resume, not because they actually do the work, but because it looks good and boosts their power. And so even without a smoking gun, this whole situation fits the same messy pattern Blake has been accused of for years. Blake Lively has been feasting off other people's success for years, and nowhere is that more obvious than on the Gossip Girl set, where her co-stars took all the heat for her behind-the-scenes drama and manipulative tactics. Her first target? Penn Badgley. And the way she treated this man? Downright cold. Before Penn even had a chance to settle in, Blake was already running her mouth, convincing everyone to freeze him out. Not because he did anything wrong, but just because she didn't like him. Imagine walking onto set only to find out you're already public enemy number one, thanks to some behind-the-scenes whisper campaign. It literally took weeks before the cast realized Penn was actually cool, but by then, the damage was already done. And here's the real kicker. After all that, Blake and Penn dated for 3 years. Then, as soon as she was done with him, she dumped him and ran straight into Ryan Reynolds' arms. But this is where things get extra shady. After Blake married Ryan and had producers worshiping the ground she walked on, Penn's career mysteriously tanked. Word in the industry? Low-key blacklisted. Why? Because Blake wasn't cool with him anymore. Sound familiar? It should, because the same thing allegedly happened with Justin Baldoni and the It Ends With Us cast. After Justin leaked those spicy messages from Blake, people started piecing things together. Now, many are convinced that Blake may have caught feelings for Baldoni, and when he didn't reciprocate, she flipped the script and started acting like a bitter, jilted lover. And just like the Gossip Girl cast, Baldoni's It Ends With Us co-stars, like Brandon Sklenner, and even author Colleen Hoover seem to be distancing themselves from Blake. Coincidence? Or another classic Blake Lively fallout? Allegedly, the cast finally put the pieces together and realized Blake had played them all. Oh, and if you missed it, I already have a whole video on Penn Badgley dragging Blake for tanking his career, so go check that out. But let's shift gears, because if you thought Penn had it rough, wait till you hear what she did to Leighton Meester. These two were out here playing besties on screen, but behind the scenes? Oil and water. And if there's one thing about Blake, she will always pull the gender card when things get messy. According to the show's executive producer, Joshua Safran, Blake and Leighton were friends, but not friendly, which in Hollywood speak, they couldn't stand each other. And if you've ever watched their awkward press interviews, the tension was practically screaming through the screen. But wait, it gets worse. Armie Hammer, who played Gabriel on Gossip Girl, has subtly, but very clearly, hinted that Blake was the reason he left the show early. And honestly, at this point, who is even surprised? And speaking of Blake's greatest diva moments, we absolutely cannot skip over her legendary beef with Anna Kendrick. During their A Simple Favor press tour, the energy between them, toxic. It was so thick you could cut it with a butter knife. One of the producers even admitted that Blake was impossible to work with. But of course, Blake being Blake couldn't handle it, so instead of taking the L, she accused Anna of stealing the spotlight during promos. And people were just like, girl, please. If you want the full breakdown on how Anna Kendrick dragged Blake Lively, definitely check out my deep dive. But for now, just know this. Blake's bad attitude has been on full display for years, and we haven't even hit the real drama yet. Blake's skeletons are spilling all over the place, but guess what? Ryan Reynolds' closet is just as packed with scandal. From sneaky Hollywood power plays to shady business moves, the receipts are finally coming out, and some of your favorite celebs, who've been keeping quiet for years, are finally spilling everything. Heads up, it's bad. Like, by the time we're done here, you will be shocked. Let's start with Tim Miller, the original director behind Deadpool, who has publicly admitted that he left the franchise because of Ryan Reynolds. Now, if you thought Ryan was just some goofy, lovable guy, Tim's got a very different story to tell. Apparently, Ryan hijacked Deadpool and started acting like it was his personal property project, pushing Tim to the sidelines like he was just there to nod and agree. Word on the street? Ryan wanted complete control, scripts, scenes, the whole vibe, and the second Tim pushed back, Ryan basically told him, my way or the highway. So what did Tim do? Packed his bags and walked. He even told Mental Health magazine straight up, I don't mind having a debate, but if I can't win, I don't want to play, and I don't think you can negotiate every creative decision.
Is Ryan doing this? And the other weird thing is like, maybe he got, I think he's kind of an insecure dude. He's really nice, but I mean, his Twitter bio is showing you the parts of me that tested the best in focus groups. And I'm not sure that he's joking.
Translation? Ryan Reynolds was impossible to work with, and Tim refused to be his puppet. When Ryan Reynolds decided he wanted full control over Deadpool, there was no stopping him. He was the face of the franchise, the biggest name attached, so if he wanted to call the shots, nobody could tell him no. And when a Hollywood heavyweight like Ryan blocks every move you make, there's only so much fight left before you have to walk away. And let's be clear, Tim Miller wasn't the only one fed up with Ryan's antics. Enter TJ Miller, aka Weasel from Deadpool. Now, if you know TJ, you already know he's got a big mouth. So unlike Tim, he didn't leave quietly. Oh no, he made sure the world knew exactly why he was done with Ryan. And when I say this man would rather pass up a massive Hollywood paycheck than deal with Ryan again, yeah, that bad. According to TJ, Ryan treated him like absolute trash on set, and not in a we're just messing around kind of way. This was straight up humiliation. No punchlines, no jokes, just raw disrespect. And the worst part? TJ still doesn't even know why. He swears he never did anything to Ryan, especially since he was just a side character. But the more he thought about it, the clearer it became. It was all about Ryan's ego. He wanted everyone to remember who the biggest star in the room was. And if you thought Ryan only clashed with the guys on set, think again. His leading lady? Yeah, she got caught in the crossfire too. Morena Baccarin, who played Vanessa, aka the literal love interest in Deadpool, went from front and center in the first movie to practically erased in the sequel. And no, this wasn't just some random creative choice. Word on the street? Morena Baccarin's real-life fallout with Ryan Reynolds had everything to do with her getting pushed out of Deadpool. Apparently, things got messy behind the scenes, and after that, Morena wasn't just cut from the spotlight in the movie. She was completely iced out in real life, too. Now, what really caused the fallout? Nobody's dropping solid receipts yet, but the whispers say it could have been a clash over her shrinking role, or maybe she pushed back on some of Ryan's jokes that didn't sit right with her. Either way, one thing is crystal clear: challenging Ryan in his franchise is the quickest way to get ghosted. And if you need proof, look no further than Deadpool and Wolverine promos. Morena was nowhere to be found. While the rest of the cast was riding the hype train, she was left completely out of the picture. And at the premiere, she stood solo while the whole cast was grinning around Ryan. Yeah, that silence was loud. Honestly, this whole situation is screaming Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni, it ends with us energy. When the power couple runs the show, you either play along or get played out. But here's where it gets even wilder. Ryan's diva behavior wasn't just limited to his Deadpool co-stars. Reality TV stars got a taste too, and they lived to tell the tale. The Jersey Shore crew was on Watch What Happens Live with Andy Cohen, and when asked who the rudest celeb they ever met was, most people would usually laugh it off or dodge the question. But not this time. Sammy tried to play it cute at first, but before she could even blink, Dina went full unfiltered and dropped the name Ryan Reynolds. Dina might have tried to soften the blow with a little, "He wasn't great to us, but I still love Ryan and Blake." But let's be real, if you have to say that, you already said too much. Meanwhile, Sammy tried to clean it up by suggesting maybe Ryan was just having a bad day. But let's be honest, when the stories start piling up, it's no longer just a bad day. Ryan's nice guy act might work on social media, but behind the scenes, it's a whole different story. And clearly, not everyone is buying into the charm once the cameras stop rolling. And it's not just former co-stars catching the heat, even rising A-listers are leaving sets traumatized. Some actors are so shaken up that they won't even name names. Instead, they just drop horror stories and let the audience connect the dots. Enter Rebecca Ferguson. Rebecca once spilled about a nightmare co-star who made her life hell on set, and while she never explicitly named names, the way she described it, pure chaos. She talked about this one actor who was so deep in their own insecurities they couldn't even get their lines right. But instead of handling their own mess, they took it all out on her. We're talking full-on screaming matches in front of the entire crew, calling her a trash actor like it was casual conversation. Sis straight up admitted she was walking off set in tears. But here's the plot twist. Rebecca Ferguson didn't just take the abuse, she clapped back hard. One day she had enough and straight up told this nightmare co-star to get off her set. She even went so far as to say she'd rather act with a tennis ball than deal with their dusty energy. And honestly, the way she reclaimed her power was iconic. After her story blew up, Hollywood rallied around her. Even The Rock himself showed love, and some of her past co-stars hit her up like, "Girl, we knew you were dealing with something, but this, wild."
Idiot of a co-star. And this human being was being so insecure and angry because this person couldn't get the scenes out. And I think I was so vulnerable and comfortable that I got screamed at. And I would cry walking off set. This person would literally look at me in front of the whole crew and say, "You call yourself an actor, this is what I have to work with. What is this?" And I stood there just breaking. This happens. But because this person was number one on a call sheet, there was no safety net for me. So no one had my back. And I remember the next day I walked on and I said, "You get off my set." This is the first time I've ever spoken. I remember being so scared. And I looked at this person and I said, "You can F off. I'm going to work towards a tennis ball. I never want to see you again." And then I remember the producers came up and said, "You can't do this to number one. We have to let this person be on set." And I said, "But the person can turn around and I can act to the back head."
Now, Rebecca kept the mystery name under wraps, but she did make one thing clear. It wasn't Tom Cruise or Hugh Jackman. And while she didn't mention Ryan Reynolds either, his name still made it onto people's suspect list because at this point, his track record is looking real suspicious. But Rebecca's not the only one who seems to have quietly dipped from Ryan's circle. Even his so-called Hollywood homies are keeping their distance. And the biggest switch up? Jake Gyllenhaal. Remember when Jake and Ryan were basically joined at the hip after life? They were giving our bromance goals. Interviews, red carpets, inside jokes, the whole package. And then, poof! The friendship vanished into thin air, and knowing how tight-lipped Jake usually is, the fact that he's actively ignoring Ryan's existence speaks volumes. Something in that Hollywood water is definitely off. And trust me, Ryan's awkward vibes with Jake Gyllenhaal, just the tip of the iceberg. Because right now, Ryan's entire Hollywood resume is looking like one giant red flag. Directors and producers? Shook to work with him. At this point, everyone knows Ryan has a habit of bulldozing creative boundaries and turning every project into the Ryan Reynolds show, whether anybody asked for it or not. Even Quentin Tarantino, a man notorious for saying exactly what's on his mind, straight up shaded Ryan without even trying. Here's what he said. And I'm not picking on anybody, but apparently for Netflix, Ryan Reynolds has made $50 million on this movie, $50 million on that movie, and $50 million on the next one. I don't know what any of those movies are. Have you? I haven't ever talked to Ryan Reynolds' agent, but his agent must just say, well, it costs $50 million. Then he hit with the real punchline. Good for him that he's making so much money, but those movies don't exist in the zeitgeist. It's almost like they don't even exist. Ouch. But if you think that's messy, wait till you hear what went down with Home Alone. Ryan actually tried to reboot the classic, but with a stoner twist that literally nobody asked for. The name, Stoned Alone. And when Home Alone's original director, Chris Columbus, caught wind of it, he was livid. Called it straight up disrespectful, an insult to the art of cinema, and basically told Ryan to sit down and go rewatch the original instead. And it's not just directors coming for him. Fellow actors aren't holding back either. When someone tried to compare Gerard Butler's movie Gamer to Ryan's Free Guy, Gerard didn't even hesitate. I don't watch Ryan Reynolds movies. Yikes. Ryan Reynolds' on-set messiness? Turns out it followed him straight into his love life too. And no one knows that better than his ex-wife, Scarlett Johansson. Their marriage just so happened to fall apart right when Scarlett's career started skyrocketing, landing massive Marvel roles in Iron Man 2 and The Avengers. And on the very few occasions Scarlett has spoken on it, she's made it very clear what went down. She once said, "There will always be a more successful person in a marriage, but Ryan never wanted to be the least successful." Oof. Now, if you missed the full scoop on how cheating, jealousy, and insecurity led to their messy divorce, don't worry. I already covered all of that, so be sure to check it out. But let's be real, this insecure label isn't coming from just one source. It's following Ryan everywhere, from co-stars to directors to exes. And at some point, you gotta ask yourself, if everyone is saying the same thing, can they all be lying? So yeah, Blake and Ryan might look like the perfect couple on the surface, but behind the scenes, the math isn't mathing. From shady career moves to relationship mess, the cracks are showing, and Hollywood isn't letting it slide anymore. Thanks for watching, you guys. Make sure to like, subscribe, and share if you want more deep dives on your favorite celebs. Ouch. But if you think that's messy, wait till you hear what went down with Home Alone. Ryan actually tried to reboot the classic, but with a stoner twist that literally nobody asked for. The name, Stoned Alone. And when Home Alone's original director, Chris Columbus, caught wind of it, he was livid. Called it straight up disrespectful, an insult to the art of cinema, and basically told Ryan to sit down and go rewatch the original instead. And it's not just directors coming for him. Fellow actors aren't holding back either. When someone tried to compare Gerard Butler's movie Gamer to Ryan's Free Guy, Gerard didn't even hesitate. I don't watch Ryan Reynolds movies. Yikes. Ryan Reynolds' on-set messiness? Turns out it followed him straight into his love life too. And no one knows that better than his ex-wife, Scarlett Johansson. Their marriage just so happened to fall apart right when Scarlett's career started skyrocketing, landing massive Marvel roles in Iron Man 2 and The Avengers. And on the very few occasions Scarlett has spoken on it, she's made it very clear what went down. She once said, "There will always be a more successful person in a marriage, but Ryan never wanted to be the least successful." Oof. Now, if you missed the full scoop on how cheating, jealousy, and insecurity led to their messy divorce, don't worry. I already covered all of that, so be sure to check it out. But let's be real, this insecure label isn't coming from just one source. It's following Ryan everywhere, from co-stars to directors to exes. And at some point, you gotta ask yourself, if everyone is saying the same thing, can they all be lying? So yeah, Blake and Ryan might look like the perfect couple on the surface, but behind the scenes, the math isn't mathing. From shady career moves to relationship mess, the cracks are showing, and Hollywood isn't letting it slide anymore. Thanks for watching, you guys. Make sure to like, subscribe, and share if you want more deep dives on your favorite celebs.